Well, joining me now in London is Kashmiri journalist and novelist Mirza Waheed. He's the author of several novels set in his native Kashmir, including The Collaborator and The Book of Gold Leaves. Good to have you on the program, Mirza Waheed. So, Kashmir stripped of its special status. What does that mean to you as a Kashmiri?
I mean, it means many things. We are still trying to make sense of it. But what we do know so far is they've done in the parliament, in India's parliament, in the highest seat of democracy in India. They have done exactly what they've done in Kashmir on the ground in the last 30 years, which is a brutal denial of rights, a complete shutdown of people's agency. As we now know, they made this decision within a couple of hours in the Indian parliament while putting an entire people in a most brutal seat. Most people, and almost entirely, the entire population of Kashmir right now is locked down. There is no communications, as you might well know. I haven't been able to speak to my parents for more than 2 days now. I don't know how they are. I don't know anything about them or other families. They can't even talk to each other because this time around, the crackdown, the lockdown is so brutal that they have even blocked good old-fashioned landlines. So there's no word out of Kashmir, as our famous, Kashmiri poet Aga Shahid Ali said, from where no news can come. That's one. The other aspect is, what does it mean? It means all the dark things that Kashmiris suspected for a long, long time, that this is the BJP's, it was part of their campaign promise that they're going to abrogate this article. This article had been eroded away anyway over the last few decades. It was token autonomy anyway. But within the constitutional framework of India, it guaranteed a special status, which was the main condition of Kashmir's accession to India in 1947, when the then King Maharaja Hari Singh agreed to accede to the Indian Union under spurious sort of suspicious circumstances. But that's another matter. In promise for when they agreed, India promised to retain Kashmir's autonomy with defense, foreign affairs, and communications would be looked after by India, and the rest of the state would be looked after by the local government. That's been eroded successively by the Indian state, by its client elites within Kashmir, by direct promulgations from Delhi. From time to time, we always had president's rule, which basically means a man from Delhi is imposed as a direct ruler in Kashmir, as we saw just now. And now it's very clear they had this governor in place who's a BJP man for this dramatic, shocking move.
Right. I mean, I'd like to ask you if you believe that the message to Kashmiris is that, listen, there's no longer any dispute, there's no longer any argument, there's no longer any hope for more autonomy or even the little autonomy that you did have, never mind self-determination. I wonder if you think the message is that Kashmir is wholly India's, and for as long as the BJP is in power, they're going to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, this is their stated position. But you see, the thing is, just because they have this mandate and they can pass this law, it was a sleight of hand how they got this approved. Because, as I said, I want to go back to my earlier point. In order to revoke Article 370, you need what the correct word is concurrence. You need concurrence from the state constituent assembly, which doesn't exist. There's one man who rules Kashmir right now, who is a governor appointed by the same party that made this, abrogated the article yesterday. The message is very clear. You're absolutely right. The message is unambiguous, which is, we will do what we please to do with. You have no voice. We will shut you down. We'll lock your phones. We'll lock you inside your houses. And we will annex Kashmir. That's what they are trying to do. But the question is, how will it pan out on the ground? And that worries me a lot, because Kashmiris, as we know, history is witness to the fact, have always resisted moves by the Indian state to change the status of Jammu and Kashmir status. And I'm really, really worried, because once this blockade is lifted, once the curfew is gone, we might see unprecedented turmoil in the state once again, which, as we all know, means more bloodshed.
Yeah, a lot of people are very worried. Mirza Waheed, really good to talk to you. Looking forward to chatting to you again on the show sometime soon. Thanks for joining us on the Newsmakers. Let's broaden out the discussion. Joining me now from New Delhi is Syed Zafar Islam. He's the national spokesman for India's ruling BJP. Also in New Delhi is journalist Ajai Shukla. He's a retired Indian Army colonel. And in London is Muzzammil Ayyub Thakur. He's the president of the World Kashmir Freedom Movement and the executive director of the Justice Foundation. Gentlemen, good to have you on the Newsmakers. Syed Zafar Islam, we heard from Mirza Waheed, who said that this revoking of the article means all the dark things that Kashmiris have suspected over all these years. Is he wrong?
Absolutely, absolutely wrong. Let me tell you and your viewer that the ordinary Kashmiris, unlike Mr. Waheed, they were always keen and wanted that this Article 370 and 35A should be scrapped, because whatever benefits, who were enjoying those benefits under Article 370 or 35A, it's only the few privileged families, that's all. The ordinary Kashmiris were certainly suffering, and because all the benefits were only going to these people, and they were insulated from the the advantages these people had from the Union of India. So the ordinary Kashmiris are extremely excited, extremely happy. They're thrilled with joy, and I'm sure once the opportunity they will have, they will definitely demonstrate the keenness.
I haven't been able to hear from them as to whether they're happy or not, because there's a blackout and a lockdown by the Indian Army. So we can't hear it from a single Kashmiri right now. So listen, this will live forever on the internet. We'll circle back to your words once we hear from Kashmiris in the valley, once the lockdown and blackout ends. Muzzammil Ayyub Thakur, are you one of those elitists who's not an ordinary Kashmiri because you oppose revoking Article 370?
Well, according to the definition of your previous guest, it seems that anybody that disagrees with them is an elitist. Unfortunately, these people are delusional. They live in La La Land, and they have never probably lived inside Kashmir and integrated or assimilated with those people, understood what they felt over the last 70-odd years. If we leave the last 70 years and we just look at since 2008, the uprising that started in 2008 against Indian oppression and Indian subjugation has continued. It's manifested into something even worse, into something even more. It has forced the hand of India to take unconstitutional decisions, break its own laws, and most importantly, the United Nations resolutions of 122, 123, and 126, where there can be no changes to the situation of Kashmir, of how it is at the moment, until the plebiscite or the referendum happens. So he's completely in the wrong. He has no idea. Sitting in Delhi, he can't tell the Kashmiris how to feel. And most importantly, when they've locked everything down, they won't allow any movement of traffic. They won't allow any information to flow through Kashmir or outside of Kashmir. How on earth does he have the right to discuss how we feel and what our opinions are?
Ajai Shukla, stripping Kashmir of its autonomy at this moment in time, was it a good idea?
Oh, well, I don't know whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. Opinion is sharply divided on that. I think it was a bad idea. But it has to be seen in the larger context of things. Anybody who says that they suspected dark deeds or dark intentions on the part of New Delhi has not been reading the BJP's manifestos and the BJP's stated positions over the years, going all the way back to the early 1950s. The Bharatiya Janata Party, which is now in power, has consistently stated, including in its two manifestos of 2014 and 2019, earlier this year, that it would revoke Article 370 because it believes that it's an outdated provision. It's a provision that existed at a point in time in history when India was forming its borders, when India was consolidating its territory, and at that point, article, those set of provisions are outdated and need to be done away with. This also consolidates with the BJP's majoritarian position of a Hindu homeland for India. And it believes that the days of pandering to minorities, including the Muslim minority, are long past, and that doesn't need to be done any longer.
Right.
So this is not surprising. This is something that was on the cards.
Okay, and I want to bring in Syed Zafar Islam here for some clarity here, because what's interesting is that as we've discussed this over the past couple of years or so, Article 35A was expected to be revoked, which was a part of 370, but this government went and revoked the whole thing. Is it true that the intention is to have an element of finality here from this government? It's saying that Kashmir is no longer in dispute. There's no negotiations over self-determination. The people in the valley who want the opportunity to have a plebiscite or referendum, they can get lost, and never mind Pakistan. There's no more debate about Kashmir because the deed is done and it's settled. Is that what you want?
Well, I'm sure that you have read Article 370, and the first thing everyone should know that it was temporary. Is 70 years, is it temporary? I think it should have gone long back. Unfortunately, the elitist Kashmiris feel that it was their right to have Article 370 while ignoring the livelihood of the ordinary Kashmiris and the prosperity which they will have now, something which has been denied to them in the past. Let me tell you, there are few people in Kashmir will definitely have problem, but the majority of Kashmir, we know the pulse, unlike the elitist Kashmiri sitting on this channel, where definitely they are privileged. I must say they are privileged because most of the Kashmiris who are talking about fighting their battle is the one their children are studying in overseas.
Allow me to come in here for a second.
How dare you?
If this is
How
something
dare
that's
you?
so, Syed, if this is something so fundamentally good for the people in the valley, it's interesting that it's being enforced at the moment at the barrel of a gun with thousands of troops that have rolled in and they've been cut off from the rest of the world. Doesn't sound like the most wonderful thing that's being gifted to them right now, does it?
Well, let me give you the reason why it is being done. First of all, because these ordinary Kashmiris have been used like a bullet every time by these elitist Kashmiris and the few families who are the beneficiary all along of Article 370. So they have been always misled. The ordinary Kashmiris will be again used by these people for protest, and they will be the one who will be the victim, not these people. To ensure that doesn't happen, we have ensured that the adequate security measures are there, and once everything gets normalized, the same Kashmiri people, ordinary Kashmiri people, will
before I get a
respond to these
response
people.
from Muzzammil,
The elitist Kashmiris,
okay, certainly. Before I get a response from
their rights have
Muzzammil,
been restored, which has been denied to them.
certainly. Before I get a response from Muzzammil, I have a very specific question to you, because you talk a lot about the ordinary Kashmiris who you say are in the majority. Could you name me one of them currently in the valley that supports the government's policy now in revoking Article 370? Could you name me one person?
And you would not know all the ordinary Kashmiris. You will unfortunately know only the elected.
No, I'd like one
let
name.
me tell you.
And then we'll follow up. Give us a name and we'll follow up. Give us one person's name and we'll follow up. Okay, so just one. Just one.
No, allow me to complete. All I'm saying, ask all the ministers who are there right now, the ministers who are there in Kashmir from the valley side, ask their own team. They will say that this should have gone back, and I can't say.
Omar Abdullah is detained at the moment. Okay, but if you could just give me the name of one ordinary Kashmiri who supports this policy, just one.
I'm hinting you.
No, I want a name. One person.
No, why will I give the name? But I'm telling you all the ministers and the ex-chief ministers of Jammu and Kashmir and their team. Ask their team. They will say the wonderful thing has happened.
One name.
These people should put
one name, sir. One name of someone who supports this policy.
I can't name.
You can't.
I can't name anyone.
Muzzammil,
but I can
Ayyub,
tell
Thakur, come in.
You will realize these people
Muzzammil,
will have a difficult time going forward.
Muzzammil?
Well, you've witnessed yourself exactly what the BJP spokesman is talking about. He's talking complete nonsense. He has no idea what he's saying. They're living in a fool's paradise. I don't understand why they can't accept the fact that nobody in Kashmir, it doesn't matter whether it's their own lackeys like the former chief ministers who were puppets to the Indian government, and look how they've treated them. Do you really think that anybody in Kashmir right now has any affinity to the state of India, to even the BJP? The moment the lines of communication are opened up, of which Amit Shah has already said that they have no intention of removing the new forces or opening up communications, but once that happens, you will see yourself exactly what's going on. May I also point out that this isn't the first time. Historically, India have time and again used cyber cells to silence people that are dissenting, not just people on the streets, but even on the internet, be it Facebook, social media, Twitter, whatever it is. And they continuously try and silence them. Now, when they talk about people that are elitists, I mean, you cannot translate that every single person, 99.9% of people that are in Kashmir at the moment, and those that are in the diaspora, are completely against what is going on. There is a massive campaign at the moment working against what has happened in terms of the application of Article 370. But
you are far away from the reality. You don't know the reality. Let me tell you one thing, Mr. Muzzammil.
No. You have no right to say anything in regards to Kashmir. You are sitting in Delhi. You don't have any blood Kashmiri blood. You have no communication with anybody in Kashmir. All you've done is assaulted, murdered, killed people under the pretense of some kind of secular India. You have a Rashtriya. You have a simple system of alienating people, killing people, murdering people. Your government has the minority. What they've done with the minorities. Your own prime minister has murdered. Is considered to be the butcher of Gujarat. On what moral authority do you think that you have sitting here and telling a Kashmiri how to feel and what he thinks and what the reality on the ground is? No, sir, you have no right to speak. No, sir, you have no right to tell me how to feel. You have no right to tell me what the facts are. I will tell you what the truth is. I will tell you what the facts are.
We will give them jobs. We will give them prosperity.
This is not your Indian news channel that you can shout and scream at me. You're supposed to be the head of a democracy.
Okay, so Syed Zafar Islam is saying that you'll bring development and jobs. I want to talk a little bit about something more imminently feared and ask Ajai Shukla, especially given your previous experience as an Indian Army colonel. Is there an expectation from your end that the insurgency will be ignited by this movement, by the government to revoke Article 370, and we're going to see trouble around the corner?
Yes. Sadly, I have to say, yes, that is the case. I think that the insurgency has moved in cycles, and now we are at a point in time where this measure that has been taken is likely to rekindle insurgency. It's likely to enhance the levels of violence, the levels of alienation. And yes, I have to say that I have to endorse the position that there is probably not one Kashmiri in the whole valley who will welcome the revocation of Article 370, including the former chief ministers who have gone on record to criticize it. But I have to also say that looking at it dispassionately as a journalist, as a person who looks at the big picture, the Kashmiris have about as much chance of getting independence or freedom as the Kurds do in your own country. I think that the borders have been drawn, the lines have been drawn. These are cycles of violence that will rise and fall, and the government is prepared to take the hard steps. It supports the government's position, a majoritarian position of putting the Muslims in their place. And to that extent, I don't think that there's going to be too much success to this cycle of violence rising. There will just be more people killed, more Kashmiris killed. But at the end of the day, the might of a nation, that too a nation like India, is too much to fight against. And this is something that will go in vain, as has the lives of many Kashmiris over the years.
Okay, I'm going to get Muzzammil's response, but first, Syed Zafar Islam, come in, and then Muzzammil can respond. Syed Zafar Islam.
See, I heard Mr. Muzzammil said that we live in fool's paradise. Let me assure him, the elitist Kashmiri, that we will create paradise, another paradise in Kashmir, and prove you that you people are fools. Because you people misleading these people, and I must tell you that Bharatiya Janata Party have won the confidence of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and whenever the election will happen, this time Bharatiya Janata Party will win, and these people will have absolutely no say, because see, you have to understand the dynamics. dynamic because today these people were under the clutches of the elitists, and now they will enjoy 5th of August as their Independence Day. Besides, besides 15th August as the independence of India, but for Jammu and Kashmir, the 5th August will be another Independence Day because they will get freedom from the elitists and few families who are actually ruining their life and using them as their shield and using them for protest, using them for everything, but for the constructive work. So I think people of the government of India will ensure within 3-4 years, the best state in India will be Jammu and Kashmir. That is something is the stated position of the Honorable Home Minister on the floor of the Parliament, that all the investment will flow in that state, which has never been happened. All the job creation will happen in that state, and ordinary Kashmiris will be the biggest beneficiary, but unlike these people who will always, for their own benefit, compromise their interests and safeguard their own interests.
Muzzammil,
We will not let
Ayyub,
it happen.
Thakur, come in.
Well, I've been thoroughly entertained by the comedians that we've had on this show today. The reality is, yet again, these people do not know what Kashmiris want. They've never interacted with Kashmiris. They have enforced their own ideas onto us, and they are unwilling to actually listen. Please silence yourself. I didn't interrupt you when you spoke. The reality is, they have, again, please silence yourself. The reality is that they have locked up all forms of dissent. They've imposed this idea on us. It is against their own constitution. Now, I mean, let alone what Kashmiris want. It is against their own constitution. It is against the United Nations resolutions. It is an illegal manifestation of what has happened in the last couple of days. Now, if we even put that to the side, the governor himself didn't know what was going on when he was giving a so-called brief, to the former chief ministers. When the former chief ministers Farooq Abdullah and Umar Abdullah went to visit Narendra Modi, he didn't tell them anything either. So this was something very close under wraps. But I also want to mention this isn't something that has happened suddenly. We've seen this incrementally increase over the last year. First, it started with Jamaat Islami and JKLF being banned. Then it was the NIA, the National Investigation Authority, locking people up and doing investigations willy-nilly based on nothing. And then they decided to break up the government between the BJP and PDP. And I mean, this has been incrementally. The BJP and the government have incrementally, thoroughly, systematically planned this to the point where back in February, after the Pulwama attack, Ajit Doval had spoken with his counterpart in America, informing them of what they were going to do. On the 1st of August, yet again, the external minister had also spoken to his counterparts and also the P5 countries. They had informed them in advance on the 1st of August what they were planning on doing. This has not been something that has suddenly happened. It has been ongoing. Right. And the reality is they have never taken any Kashmiri into confidence. And even if they did, they would never have accepted those ideas anyway. Okay. And lastly, if you allow me, Article 370 is not what our issue is. Our issue is the right to self-determination, which has been there since 1947. It is granted to us under the United Nations and the United Nations Charter. Irregardless of what happens, we will continue to fight for our right to self-determination.
Okay, and Indian government. Okay, so listen, Syed, Zafar, Islam. Listen. We're completely out of time, but you are all invited back to the show because yes, I want to talk about that because we've had Indian government spokesman here in the past saying, well, the bilateral talks between Pakistan and India have abrogated that right to self-determination in the UN resolution, and so on. I want to talk about possible demographic changes and Hindus moving into the valley and lots more. At the moment, we're just dying to get some word from the valley and to hear from some Kashmiris, but we can't because the place is under lockdown. But we're keeping a close eye on the situation. Looking forward to talking to you all again very soon. Ajai Shukla, Muzzammil, Ayyub, Thakur, and Syed, Zafar, Islam. Thanks for joining us.